Catch up on previous parts by clicking the playlist, linked in the description. As Iana rushed to the tomb, Sol held her back, warning that she could get hurt if she blindly rushed off in a panic. When she told him to let her go, he asked if she knew what she saw in the tomb, but she refused to elaborate. Yomi then held Sol back, reminding him that he was just a servant who needed to keep quiet and follow along. Sol tried to explain that he was trying to protect Iana by understanding what she was thinking, but Yomi doubted he was doing this for Iana's sake. When Iana was in middle school, she learned how important it was to take action to get ahead of things. One day, she was rushing to get a ticket for some limited edition merch. She begged the gods to be able to buy one, but even when they said there were plenty of tickets, the curse wouldn't break. Back then, if they said the tickets would go on sale tomorrow at 3, she worried that when she arrived, they would say the time changed to 1:30, so the sales had finished. She often had nightmares about it, and right now, she felt like she was having one of those nightmares again. Iana wondered if there was some kind of sign after they arrived at the resort, and if she had simply not seen it. The timing for all this was far too perfect. Arriving at the residential area, she noticed no one was around. Suddenly, some elves approached, but they had all been turned into vampires. They started chasing her as she ran away. Eventually, she'd hit one of them away. Then, remembered these lower vampires could only follow their instincts, so they shouldn't be very strong. She believed she'd be able to handle it alone. Suddenly, Kagura came running towards her, crying out for help. In that moment of distraction, she got pinned down by a vampire, struggling to bite at her. Yomi would come to her rescue, using his magic to blast away the vampires, and Sol as well, defeating them with his sword. Iana then rushed to Kagura, comforting him with a hug. It was much harder to move than she thought it'd be. Everything had worked out so far, so she thought it would all be fine now, too. Struggling to stand, Yomi would lend her his hand, reminding her she wasn't alone. Iana realized the only thing she could do was read ahead in the story to see what might happen. She wasn't so powerful to be able to do everything by herself. After getting back on her feet, she told Sol and Yomi that the village had been attacked by vampires, and that unless they acted, even the human towns and Konoha could be in danger. Yomi and Sol agreed to help. The vampires' powers were tremendous, and Iana had no way of knowing how these characters, who weren't a saint like Konoha, would fare against them, but she was certain everything would be alright. As she ran off to locate the original vampire, they were chased by the elves who'd been turned, but the only way to defeat them was to defeat the original. In middle school, there was a small part of Iana who loved the idea of being bitten by a gorgeous vampire. She'd spend all day fantasizing about a beautiful vampire man, sinking his fangs into her, and being forcibly made into his property. She just adored it. Oh no. Is that why you guys like Diabolic Lovers so much? But now that it was all reality, Iana realized her life was more important than all that adoration. Yomi and Sol suggested they find a place to hide for a while, because they could easily be overwhelmed by the number of vampires. Suddenly, the vampires would start talking about devouring Konoha's blood. Hearing this, Sol began taking them out until Shukuna signaled them to come over. The elf would close the secret door to keep out the vampires. Iana was shocked to see him, considering she thought he was the same elf who died in the main story. As Shukuna led them forward, he explained that the only way of defeating the vampires was either purification by a saint's powerful abilities or a cross through the heart. All thanks to Iana, since she was the one who wrote it that way. However, Shukuna believed his kin weren't to blame and that they were victims. Sol argued they didn't have much of a choice because the vampires spoke of devouring Konoha. Even Shukuna was surprised by Konoha's purity of spirit. The energy that surrounded her was sacredness itself. Vampires, by nature, were drawn to innocent blood, which was most likely why they were drawn to Konoha, who was very much like a saint. Depending on the circumstances, the master vampire might decide to take her as his consort. However, what he didn't know was that Konoha's blood had the power to suppress vampire transformations, so she'd never turn into one herself. Iana would collapse, thinking about how she created all this. She then mentioned destroying the vampire master, but Shukuna claimed it was too dangerous. Plus, it would soon be night, and that was when the vampire's power was at its strongest. Sol suddenly threatened to split Shukuna's mouth open if he didn't tell them where to find the master. You know guys, I saw this meme recently where it points out the various Sasuke archetypes across anime. I think it's fair to label this guy fanfiction Sasuke. That aside, he got Shukuna to reveal the vampire was at the largest temple in the village. Iana wondered why Sol was acting this way, especially when he seemed a bit gentler before they came to the village. Meanwhile, Yomi was in a surprisingly good mood. Beyond the door in front of them was the chapel, where a few survivors were hiding. Sukuna suggested they rest there for a while. As they entered, he commended Iana and the others for being strong, unlike himself, who watched helplessly as everyone got turned into vampires. He didn't feel strong and never knew anyone who was. Sukuna felt it was because he was like this that he couldn't remember how he got injured in the human village. Iana comforted him, letting him know that there was still meaning in him being here, and leading them to the temple's chapel. Suddenly, he'd bite her neck, revealing he was a vampire all along. Not only that, but he decided to become a vampire purposely, since he was so powerless before. He'd lock Iana and Sol inside the room, hoping she'd turn into a vampire and become the bait needed to lure Konoha. Yomi tried to use his remaining magical energy to unlock the door, but upon touching the seal, it blurred his senses. Meanwhile, Iana kept her distance from Sol so that she wouldn't harm him in case she began transforming. According to the lore, those bitten by the master vampire retain their self-awareness and become child vampires. Those who are bitten by child vampires would become grandchild vampires with no consciousness or reason. And that was exactly what Iana was about to become. If she went on to become a vampire, she'd bite Sol without knowing what she was doing, and that would trigger a death flag. Iana didn't want to harm Sol, and she also wanted to survive. So she panicked, thinking of how to break out of this dead end. Looking at the stake in her hand, she wondered if there was some kind of gimmick to it. While she analyzed it, Sol saw her holding it up and feared she was about to kill herself. He'd stop her by pinning her to the ground. But Iana thought he had realized she was trying to run away. Her heart raced as she apologized, when suddenly she smelled a faint scent of blood. In the temple, Sukuna explained to the Vampire King how he planned to lure Konoha using Iana. The king saw Iana as wicked and full of chaotic energy, but with her still being a woman, he decided to go meet her in person. Iana's transformation would be completed as she told Sol that Konoha's blood was what was most important to her. Ooh, that's it. Only one more episode left. How will things turn out? Subscribe to keep up with next week's part. But for now, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all in the next one.